Hello there, this is Dr. Jason Munsell. It is July 28th, Monday. This is our final week together. I know that you probably will need tissues. I have a few announcements before we start, or before I start the online recorded lecture here for Chapter 16. First, I wanted to remind you that I have extended the deadlines for those folks who are not graduating, because we got word from Dr. Scott Smith, registrar, when all of our grades were due. And so my grades are not due for those who are not graduating until next Tuesday. And so I'm giving you until this Sunday at 5 p.m. now to turn everything in. So that gives you a few more days to do your final tweet, your final email to me, and your final blog, as well as that final paper. That again is exactly like the first paper, except this time you are applying particular things from our textbook instead of information from a particular website. And I am happy to look at rough drafts. Also, remember, for those of you who are graduating, and I think from the emails I've gotten, it's just two of you, Amy and Yoon, and I will need your stuff. I emailed you this Thursday at noon, and I think that will give me more than enough time to read your final stuff before the deadline. That is Thursday at 5. So that's the first announcement. Just and I've emailed you this information as well. Certainly, if you want to get stuff earlier to me, I can, have your final grades ready for you earlier on KC. But I'm just giving you that extra time in case you need it. Second announcement here. I do believe that Miss Amanda Therrell in the Provost's office is setting up, or maybe she's already set up, some sort of an evaluation for this particular class. There's a particular evaluation matrix we use for online classes, and so that should be on there, or it should be forthcoming, and perhaps you've got an email from her. I'm not sure exactly how all that stuff works. I did ask for this to be evaluated. It's not required, but even though I've been teaching college now for 21 years, they kicked me into a couple of public speaking classes my first year of graduate school, fall 1993. So, but we're always trying to improve, and particularly when it comes to online stuff. I don't have a lot of experience teaching online classes, as you saw from the syllabus, and it's not really my favorite thing in the world. It's always very contextual, but I've tried to limit some of the problems that we sometimes see with this type of delivery system. For instance, no online timed exams or quizzes. I've tried to make these online lectures seem more conversational, so you sort of feel like you're talking with me instead of some sort of horribly detached type of recorded lecture and little homework things that you have to do. Also, one of the things that I wanted to do, or it's always sort of been my philosophy, is to, because we had 4 weeks together, there's no way I think I could have fit everything that one might try to fit in 12, 13, 14 weeks into 4 weeks. I believe in having a good learning experience and actually learning stuff, not bombarding you with stuff that just overwhelms you, and you then therefore do not learn a thing. We couldn't cover everything in the book, and so I tried to limit it so it wasn't a complete and utter burden, but you tried to learn some stuff. But anything that you can give me so far as how I can improve as a online professor, I would certainly appreciate that information. Okay, I think that's the second announcement. Third announcement is I'm here if you need me, as always. I haven't finished grading all the stuff from this third week, but I'm going to later on this evening, so you should be hearing from me, as I said in the email this morning. Okay, I'm going to try to be. I always say I'll try to be quick about these lectures, and I never am really actually quick. Um, and I I have this little joke in my head. I know my wife's coming home in about an hour or so. I want to make sure I get through this because I certainly wouldn't want to be caught lecturing on cybersex. Um, this is difficult material, and so I want you to know that this whole chapter is obviously is very academic. We all have our own sort of moral codes and perspectives about life in general, and I know discussing and reading about this type of stuff it can be difficult. Um, but but I think it is important that we do cover stuff like this because it is so pervasive online. And so we would be neglecting our education if we did not read about stuff like this and we did not think about and reflect on stuff like this. Now, this does not mean that I am demanding nor necessarily wanting you to, in your own blogs or your reflections, your emails to me, disclose all all your various favorite porn sites or anything like that. I would be uncomfortable with that. But so I'm not asking you to do that type of stuff. You can if you want to. I mean, you're empowered as a student to reflect on really anything that you want to reflect on. But long story short, I will not judge you by any stretch of the imagination if you do decide to do something like that. But long story short, it's a difficult subject matter. We don't spend a lot of time talking about this type of stuff in college classrooms or online classrooms, unless you're in Dr. Wiedeman's sex classes. But this is important stuff. So with that sort of preface, let me give you yet another preface. Slide 2 here. One of the things that I wanted to do here is to remind you of something. This is the last week, and we've been going through these various segments and sections of the textbook, but remember I gave you this information from another CMC textbook that offered these pillars of sort of intellectualism, and those pillars were the demolition of simplistic either-ors, so trying not to think in binary ways, and oftentimes we do think about gender, for instance, in binary ways. Here are women, this is the way women are to communicate and behave. Here are men, this is the way they should communicate and behave. But we need to demolish those simplistic ways of looking at things. Think about it from a political perspective. Here are Republicans, that's the way Republicans think about things. Here are Democrats, here's the way they. That's too simple. The world is messy. The critique of received ideas, like gender norms, these things that we think are just normal or naturalized or common sense, but can be very, very problematic, like gender norms, these are things that we need to critique. Freedom with respect to those in power, remember that means trying to empower yourself, trying to liberate yourself, trying to fight against your own oppression if you are indeed oppressed. Fighting for equality, or as the Beastie Boys taught us, to fight for your right to party. Respect for the complexity of problems. Really, there are no simple solutions. There are no quick fixes to anything. CMC is never a quick fix to any sort of relational woe, nor is face-to-face necessarily. And sometimes, we like to create these really, simple cause-effect relationships between things, but everything is dynamic and nuanced and complex. Oftentimes there's no yes or no answer to much of anything. It's always, it depends. That's what it means to be a college-educated person, to not have the inability to answer anything, just yes or no. Always say, it depends. But I want you to think about that, because I think these 4 pillars here of intellectualism from Pierre Bourdieu is something that we should keep in mind as we're going through this type of material. So the next slide sort of applies that idea, because I want you to even question the dark side, because we're moving into this section called the dark side, which implies obviously that this is the bad stuff. But as you have read, I mean, sometimes even the bad stuff has seeds of goodness, just like Darth Vader. He came around at the end. Luke saw the good in him, and all was good. So even question, what people might call dark, I suppose. Okay, so next slide, 4, gender and CMC again. This is just a refresher. We have covered this in a way in some of the other material on gender. Simply remember that gender is a social construct. That is, it's not biological. We craft and create the way that we think that men and women ought to behave. Remember also that rhetoric, or internet, is rhetoric. If you don't know what rhetoric means, I'm sad. That's really the type of stuff I do. I'm a rhetorician, which means I study rhetoric. In the old, I think I might have mentioned this before, in the old sort of perspective, straight from Aristotle, rhetoric is the art of finding in any given situation the available means of persuasion. Now, in a more contemporary sense, we see anything that is potentially persuasive or invites us to see the world in a particular way, or helps to construct the way that we see the world. That is rhetorical. So the internet is rhetorical. It's a type of rhetoric, and thus all the various messages and all the various usages and how we do things sort of constructs our social reality. So the way, for instance, we think about gender, the way we think about men and women, all that stuff is structured through all these various things. So basically the setup here that they're trying to do is that the internet has become a huge avenue, a huge place where people perform and therefore construct gender, and technology itself is a gendered medium. We oftentimes think in terms of technology as a masculine type of thing, but more specifically, the interesting information they borrow from Judith Butler, and they talk about the internet as a gendered performance space, and so they use performance theory and gender to really talk about this type of stuff. And really the big point about that, I don't want to, gender and performance theory is huge. I mean, that's a class in itself. But the main thing that I want you to remember about that is sort of the last sentence, last couple of sentences of that little section on page 304, Performance Theory and Gender on the Internet. Performative theory posits that gender is not specifically something humans have. We're not born with it, but rather something they do. Gender is an active expression of identity and an outward performance. That's from Elizabeth Bell, who's at the University of South Florida. The central claim of the theory states that without the performance of gender, there is no gender. So we perform it. I perform masculinity through how I talk and how the things that I do. A lot of kids will think about it as we are socializing our young children. We put boys in blue and girls in pink. Girls, we tell them to play with dolls. Boys, we tell them to go play sports. And if a boy wants to play with a doll, no, we can't do that. That's terrible. This is a G.I. Joe doll, and that's perfectly cool because, that's good stuff too. So in other words, we do gender. We don't have gender. We perform it. We're constantly on stage doing it. And the internet is one of those stages on which we do gender, perform gender. Next slide here. 5, don't hog the blog here. Basically, as they're moving into this stuff, they talk about different types of online communication or different types of CMC. from blogging to, you know, all these other different things, the cyber sex and everything like that. So one of the things that's important, I think, is just sort of a basic definition. If you don't already know what, you know, you are blogging, it's part of the assignment with the Tumblr stuff, but more